Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News Weekend. Tensions are high between a Mi'kmaw Nation in Prince Edward Island and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans after fisheries officers seized lobster traps recently. Angel Moore reports.
Jonah Kilbride is trying to retrieve his lobster traps at the Alberton Wharf from DFO officers. Kilbride was fishing to earn a moderate livelihood.
Those have been seized for illegal fishing. It is not illegal fishing. We have the right to fish.
Kilbride said he was arrested for obstruction, and this video shows a fisheries officer reading Kilbride his rights.
They told me I was under arrest for obstruction of evidence involved in an investigation. Although there shouldn't be an investigation. They're stealing from us. If anybody should be investigated, it's them.
Fisheries officers seized 300 treaty traps on Sunday. The traps have since been replaced by the band. Chief Darlene Bernard says DFO's actions are illegal. She is demanding the traps are returned and is preparing to take the Department of Fisheries to court.
We're being harmed by DFO here. When we were going about our business like we did last year, and nothing was changing. So I don't know why they think that they can just bully us and think that they can take illegal action against this First Nation. They picked the wrong one. I'm not going to be bullied by DFO.
Bernard says she will help any fisherman who is charged.
Okay, well, we'll be defending those charges for sure. Yeah. So I am behind the fishermen 100%. They're out there under our direction, so we will certainly support them in any of those charges, and we'll defend them in court.
Lennox Island launched their own management plan without incident 4 years ago. Last year, the band issued 1,500 traps, but this year, DFO limited the number of traps to 1,000. Bernard says the treaty fishery is not subject to DFO's rules.
DFO sends a letter saying that here we're only going to authorize 1,000 traps, and again I said fine, you can write whatever document you want. It's got really nothing to do with us. We gave you our documents because this is a self-regulated treaty protected fishery. You don't get to negotiate this, you don't get to control this.
Bernard hopes to rebuild the relationship with the Department of Fisheries, but will continue to protect the community.
Well, we're always going to treaty fish now. Those 15 traps are not going anywhere. They're going to stay there. That's our symbolic little treaty protected fishery.
DFO did not respond to an interview request by deadline. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Lennox Island, Mi'kmaw Nation.
Controversial legislation in Ontario is now at the committee stage in Queen's Park. Indigenous environmental and mining leaders appeared before the Provincial Committee on the Interior. The proposed Bill 5 would fast-track mining projects, particularly in the Ring of Fire in Northern Ontario. Annette Francis has the latest.
Before the meeting began, NDP MP Saul Mamakwa put forth a motion that some committee meetings be moved to Thunder Bay to give northern communities an opportunity to voice their concerns on Bill 5, but it was quickly voted down.
It's lost.
Ontario's Minister of Energy and Mines, Stephen Lecce, then opened the meeting, saying how Bill 5 will benefit the economy and Ontario's workforce. Mamakwa questioned the minister of his knowledge of a northern treaty.
Treaty 9 is the only treaty with Ontario's signature on it. Can you explain in detail what Treaty 9 means to Ontario, particularly in your role as a Minister of Energy and Mines?
I'd like to ask the Minister Bickford to respond.
I would have liked to hear your perspective as a Minister of Mines and Energy.
What I've mentioned to my colleague is that we will fully respect the treaties, fully respect the Constitution, and so much so, in addition to the codification of that principle in the law that we're proposing, the proposed legislation before the House, we are strengthening it in the preamble.
Anishinaabe ASCII Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler says Bill 5 is flawed. He said it's an insult and a direct attack on their treaty.
To respectfully engage our nations, especially when it comes to our territory and the richness of the resources that we have in our territory, our water, our trees, our minerals. We have the second largest carbon sink in the world in our territory. And so if you're serious about engaging us, you need to pause what you're doing right now and make space for our people to effectively engage in this process.
Grand Chief Fiddler said he's written a letter inviting Premier Ford to meet with the Anishinaabe-Aski Nation in Toronto, but received no response. He said that sends a signal the province will ignore their nations. The committee will continue its study of Bill 5 on Monday. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Toronto.
Meanwhile, Western premiers have gathered in Yellowknife this week to discuss trade, energy, and Arctic security at the Western Premiers Conference. And Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's presence is already stirring the pot for some people. Trans rights activists rallied outside the Northwest Territories Legislative Assembly after the first day of the conference. Organized by 2S LGBTQ+ organization, the Northern Mosaic Network, the rally protests Alberta Premier's Danielle Smith's presence and Bill 26. The bill prohibits gender-affirming care for trans youth, affecting those in the north who travel to Alberta for said care. After the protest, Northern Mosaic wrote an open letter to NWT Premier RJ Smith, voicing their concerns with gender-affirming healthcare access in the north. And their letter can be found on their website at northernmosaic.net. With Indigenous women and girls experiencing disproportionate rates of domestic violence, the Moosehide campaign aims to address the problem by engaging men to take action. A recent campaign launch took place at the Sault Ste. Marie Indigenous Friendship Centre, and our Mike McDonald was there.
Domestic violence is a community issue.
A small group of people marched in support of the Moosehide campaign, which is a day to reflect, learn, and commit to ending gender-based violence and is centered on the role men can play to achieve that. Earlier, people gathered at the Indigenous Friendship Centre for presentations on gender-based violence. Corey McLeod runs the Indigenous Friendship Centre's Kije Anishinaabe Neen program, which reconnects Indigenous men with their culture.
Seeing how the colonialism, the residential schools, the taking of the land, being treated as subhuman has had its impact in the families, the women and children, and obviously the men. The men have forgotten their role, and the men are starting to pick up their roles today. And in doing so, they need to pick up the culture.
A square of moose hide is worn as a symbol of a person's commitment to safety and respect for women. McLeod says many Indigenous women fleeing abuse make their way to the city from the reserve and often face challenges getting help.
Those supports aren't there, that leaves them very vulnerable. So as men, we really need to step up and be protective and advocate for more shelters, more places for women to have that resource when they come into the cities. And nations need to really step it up on their prevention for domestic violence and within their own nations, within their own reserves.
Stand up within me, stand up and be free. Free from pain, free from shame.
Rebecca Wabigoon was among those taking part in the Moosehide campaign march. Wabigoon's song is deeply personal, and she felt it was appropriate for the day.
My younger brother and I, we wrote it together on one day. We had just seen my journal notes and decided to put a little tune and melody to it. The song resonates with the today is, well, it says to stand up and be free from pain and free from shame, so it speaks for itself.
According to data from Stats Canada, around 14% of Indigenous girls reported experiencing physical and sexual abuse before the age of 15, while domestic violence rates are 3 times higher for Indigenous women than non-Indigenous. Mike McDonald, APTN National News, Sault Ste. Marie.
Award-winning actress Michelle Thrush is back on the stage, but this time with a one-woman play. That story coming up after the break. Welcome back. Yellowknife was treated to a special performance featuring a traditional throat singer all the way from Nunavut this past week. APTN video journalist Bruce De La Cruz has more.
Olivia Chislett warms up her voice before her first ever performance in Yellowknife. She is an accomplished throat singer and multimedia artist from Iqaluit, Nunavut, with her singing career beginning in unlikely places.
And so when I was a kid, I used to listen to audio tapes of throat singing, little cassette player tapes at my daycare. And I used to, every time there was throat singers on the local television, I would be this close to the screen, my mom would say, and just trying to copy all the sounds that they were doing.
She is performing with local folk and bluegrass artist Lester Slade. Their set includes her throat singing fused with Western styles of music.
Traditional throat songs, so songs that already have like a set rhythm and melody and everything. And I find ways to fit it into Zach's music, or Zach finds ways to fit his guitar into my song. Some of the follower parts that usually would be done by another throat singer, but he's playing his guitar along to them. So.
Olivia describes some of the challenges when blending other genres with throat singing.
Sometimes people will ask me what key something is in, and I have no idea. I just, the way we learn songs is by mimicking what we hear, and so I couldn't tell you what key or what the timing is. It might differ from performance to performance.
She also shares a painful chapter in the history of throat singing, when the practice nearly died out in the early 20th century.
For a long time, it was really demonized by settlers and missionaries, along with a whole bunch of other cultural practices. And so it was almost lost for quite a long time. Anyone who did practice it would have practiced it in secret.
But the arts of throat singing has made a comeback. Nunavik style, out of northern Quebec, was given UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage status by the Quebec government in 2014.
It started off getting revitalized in Nunavik, I believe, and from there, more and more people were inspired to start bringing it back, to start asking their elders questions, start asking each other questions. It was a lot of just love for the art itself that brought it back.
At the end of the day, throat singing is much more than just an art form for Olivia. It's a rediscovery of oneself.
For me, throat singing is part of proof of what we were and what we are, and things that we lost can be brought back.
Bruce De La Cruz, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
A one-woman play is about to make its debut in Vancouver, and as APTN's Tina House explains, the actress is no stranger to the silver screen.
Michelle Thrush has been acting since the early 1980s and has won multiple awards over the years for her work. She has starred in major Hollywood productions such as Prey, the feature film and TV series Bones of Crows, and Blackstone, where she played Gail Stoney. And now, Michelle Thrush brings that star power to Vancouver to debut her latest play she wrote in 2017 called Inner Elder.
Now, this isn't some ancient knowledge that was passed down to me through my grandfathers or anything like that. I mean, no one ever taught me when I was a little girl how to pray or told me that I could talk to trees. The storyline of Inner Elder is, it's my life. It's little snippets of what it was like to grow up in the city of Calgary, little brown girl surrounded by a lot of white conservatives, basically, growing up in Calgary, and how I survived that with a couple of parents that were not at their best because of their own trauma, and it's a comedy.
Thrush is hoping to take the play to Edmonton, Regina, Saskatoon, and Winnipeg next year.
When I have the debut here, I think the audience will see a little bit of humor, some touching moments. There's just a whole array of emotions, and laughter. Laughter is high on the list So I hope when people come see Inner Elder that they leave with a big smile on their face.
Inner Elder's debut at the Fire Hall Theatre is Thursday, May the 22nd, and opening night is already sold out. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
A new exhibit by an Inuk artist is now on display in Winnipeg. We'll give you a preview after the break. Welcome back. The Winnipeg Art Gallery, Kamayuk's new exhibition will bring over 100 works by Inuk artist Abraham Anghik Rubin under one roof. Ahead of the grand opening, APTN Sierra Bettens toured the gallery with the artist to learn about his life and work.
Here at the Winnipeg Art Gallery Kamayuk Gallery, 5 decades of work by Inuk artist Abraham Anghik Rubin is on display. The 73-year-old artist is known for blending elements of Norse and Inuit mythology. Today, we get a glimpse of the stories he's carved over 50 years. We start at a marble sculpture depicting the Norse god, Odin.
The basic idea of the stone is to portray Odin, the Viking Norse god Odin, as a seeker of wisdom. He would change into different forms of birds, animals, and humans to look at the world through their eyes.
We continue to his soapstone carving titled Danish Shaman Through the Mist of Time.
And the original image was taken from a pictograph from a cave in northern Denmark of a small little hawk man, a man transforming into a hawk. When the shaman goes into a trance, it's no different if the shaman is Inuit, someone from South America, a Viking shaman. The areas where they go, the architecture is the same. The language is the same.
In the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, Anghik Rubin traded his carving knife for a paintbrush. This piece is an ode to Iceland.
I decided that a song for Iceland would be appropriate to celebrate their cultural achievements, artistic achievements, and they were able to survive against all odds.
At 8 years old, Anghik Rubin was sent to a residential school for 11 years, losing his culture, language, and community ties. Here, a trio of sculptures tell stories of displacement and disconnection in the North.
You have a mother holding a young child who's screaming. He's being sent off to residential school. And she is grasping for, trying to hold on to traditions, got a hand over her husband, who's singing, he's a shaman who's singing songs.
The land has always been at the heart of Anghik Rubin's work, but over the years, climate change has become a central theme.
This is at a point when the Vikings and Inuit, about 800 years ago, were in the throes of in the middle of a major climatic shift. We see here with the sculpture, it's coming to us with double the force, because now it's widespread, it's worldwide. But in my home area, we have whole areas where the permafrost is collapsing, sliding off into the sea in some areas. So that is interrupting our passage to our hunting grounds. I think we're at a point where we have to look deep into the past and gain from what our ancestors did to survive, because we're going to need it.
A reception for the exhibition takes place Friday evening at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. It opens to the public on May 24th. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
It was years in the making, and after a lot of hard work, APTN launched their channel dedicated solely to Indigenous languages. This week in Vancouver, APTN executives celebrated that work. APTN's Tina House was there.
Executives from the Aboriginal People's Television Network, Indigenous influencers, producers, and staff were in Vancouver to celebrate not only the 25th anniversary since the network launched, but also the creation of the APTN Indigenous Languages channel, which began last September. The event took place at the Bill Reid Gallery in downtown Vancouver and was hosted by Nouvelle Nationale d'APTN host Kim Sullivan.
For Indigenous people, language is not just communication. It is a way we share our stories. It is a way we share who we are. It is a way that we can make sure that generation after generation understand just our ancestors, our land, our way of knowing.
Now we're taking a giant leap forward. Introducing APTN Languages, North America's first national Indigenous language channel. From dramas to documentaries to movies, APTN Languages is preserving and revitalizing Indigenous cultures.
Monica Illey is the CEO of APTN, and she says she is proud to introduce the new platform that will change the landscape of the broadcast industry and further empower Indigenous people.
Some people lost their language through residential schools, and how they're reclaiming the languages just shows the importance we give to languages, because when you lose your language, you lose a part of your identity. So reclaiming that is key to your future.
Since the launch of APTN in 1999, so many milestones have been reached as the first Indigenous broadcaster in the world.
Since then, APTN has continued to celebrate programming by, for, and about Indigenous peoples. We deliver shows, movies, and documentaries to millions of households across Canada.
Mike Omelis is the Executive Director of Content and Strategy, and he says he is excited to see how this new channel can help revitalize Indigenous languages, many of which are on the verge of extinction.
What a fantastic night. There is so much passion for reclaiming and revitalizing Indigenous languages, and support for APTN's new language channel that's broadcasting full-time in a variety of Indigenous languages, more than 17 every year. We're just thrilled to be here and meet producers and encourage them to tell more stories in their language, because there's a home for them now on APTN Languages.
Tamara Bell is a producer who has had many TV shows air on the network. She says she is proud to see APTN leading the way and creating opportunities like never before.
By having APTN there, the language is phenomenal, because it's a preservation for 7 generations forward. So what is lost is now preserved and then can be learned. And so by having that station, it allows people to connect with their language, which is one of our most precious assets in our treasure box.
APTN and APTN Languages are both available to most Canadian households through basic channel packages. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Wow, looks like it was a great time. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this weekend. Of course, you can find news anytime on our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy Miigwech, thanks for being with us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.